They're right, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're always wrong. That's my my top tip. It's more complex than that, obviously, but so what's talked about a lot is that the journey that you go through, or the template that's described when you look up blogs on PhDs and stuff, is like at the beginning, the supervisor is the expert, and then halfway through you're kind of equal, and then in like the third year you're the expert and the supervisor's learning about the topic from you, and that's true, but that's true on a superficial level, and that's what the supervisor wants for you, I think, in general. But the supervisor has also done a PhD, and a supervisor has also enabled PhD students to complete PhDs on an iterative scale. So they've done it more than once, and they've seen more than one project, and they've solved similar problems from more than one angle.
As a supervisor, I try to be as open and welcoming as I can be for students, because I think, it's a very difficult journey. It's very stressful at times. Especially at the beginning, it can be very overwhelming. I always like to think of my students having their minds blown open at the beginning. So you introduce them to lots of new reading and lots of new things to think about. And it's very hard at that point for students to then come back and narrow down and focus on what they want to do. So, I think you just have to develop that kind of relationship where you're being supportive, but you're also nudging them and pushing them to become more independent and to develop their ideas.
Are we any closer to identifying what it is that I am academically? Because a lot of the time we talk about something that we're working on, and I'll say something like, oh, well, because this is good because we can bring this in. And sometimes in a healthy way I'm challenged. And it's like, but you're not doing linguistics, or you're not doing psychology. And what I haven't stopped and asked is, well, what am I doing then?
So be prepared to work with them in a way that's collegial, and in a way that makes it fun for them to direct you, but also makes it fun for you to listen to them.
It's a really good idea to get to know your supervisors as well as you can before you start the PhD. And then that way you can hit the ground running. They'll know enough about you. You'll know some about them.
Because that is it, isn't it? And I didn't understand how important a supervisory team is, and how much you have to get each other. You have to understand where you're coming from.
I would say the number one would be regular meetings. And so when I meet my students, I will try to set up for full-time students weekly meetings, even if it is just to say hello. And the meeting doesn't last any longer than that, but it's just to check in. But I would try to have regular meetings, and that could be, depending on your topic, could be every 2 weeks, every 1 week, every 4 weeks, but regular. I would try to, relatively frequent meetings as well, I think, and even if it's just to say hello, just to check in. So I think that's important to develop that connection, that interaction.
Open and honest communication. Something isn't going well, or something, you need to discuss something, just do it. I think sometimes PhD students feel they need to know a lot, before they even start, and they need to be almost a finished article and almost not ask any questions because it's a PhD. And certainly in the early stages, it's really important to question and to seek out different perspectives and to work with your supervisors. You've got to develop the proposal. Your ideas are at a very early stage. So having those good discussions is really important.
Perhaps to volunteer information to their supervisors, especially in terms of where they are right now in their research.
Think of it this way: as a PhD student, your supervisors are there to help you, but they can't help you unless they know what you're working on or what you need help with. So keep in regular contact with them.
Meeting deadlines, providing the work, well in advance. Not many of us are able to turn something around within 12 hours or 24 hours. Enabling the supervisory team to have sufficient time to give quality feedback, because that's important, and the supervisory team need to make that time as well.
And I think also having communication about expectations. So as a supervisor, if someone sends me a piece of work to look at the day before supervision, that's not going to be any good, because with the best of intentions, I can't give informed and good feedback on that and be able to discuss it just the next day. Maybe some people can, but I can't. So I think it's about saying, well, this is how we're going to work together. It's not about me as a supervisor saying, I want you to do this. It's a joint voyage, really.
Communication. I think that is something that will come up quite a lot, but be open. Email them if you need anything, but don't pester. When you have meetings, make yourself a little agenda so that you know what you want to discuss, you can get through it all, and then you're not left with questions that are going to be unanswered for the next week or 2 weeks, whenever your next meeting is.
And so you look at them, you have the initial emotional response, you're like, they just don't understand what I was trying to do. But then you think about it and you go, well, okay, first of all, if they didn't understand what you were trying to do, that's something that I need to fix. And secondly, very often supervisory questions aren't phrased and framed in the way that they are to be taken literally. They're designed to nudge you in a direction.
And I try to remember that although they push me, that they're human too, and they're rooting for me, and they understand what it's like because they've been in a similar position to me. So I think that just being honest with your supervisors, understanding where they're coming from is a good is good to have in mind.
They are there for you because you are stuck with them for 3 years. They are gonna. It is like a love-hate relationship at the beginning. You do love them, and you're like, oh yeah, they're really nice to me. And then 6 months down the line, when they're screaming at you, get this done, you want to strangle them, but they're doing it all for the best for you. And it's nice to have someone that you're comfortable with, because you do have to put up with them.
I think you need to have a very trusting relationship as well, because one of the other things I've found over my career is that students often find it difficult to let go of their writing, and it's really important, I think, in supervision meetings to have something to work from and work with, and having a piece of writing as the basis of a meeting is something that I always encourage. And so, at the beginning, often students are very reticent to share their writing because they feel it's unfinished. Well, really, anyone's writing is always unfinished, or it's in a very rough state, just notes and so on. And so, if you can develop a very trusting relationship between the supervisory team and the student, then hopefully they'll feel comfortable in sharing their writing. And that gives you then the opportunity to provide some constructive feedback and ways forward and where to develop and so on.
And they'd just go, oh God, Laura's here again. And I'd unroll this bit of paper, and there'd just be this kind of rainbow spaghetti tangle, and they'd say, okay, so where are you now? And I'd use it to kind of talk about my thinking process. And then in the talking about it, it would kind of solidify slightly. And then that would almost take the next step.
Okay, this isn't perhaps how I wanted it to go, but it's all right. I'm going to trust in my supervisor. I'm going to trust in the process, and it will be fine.
There's you have your ups and downs. I mean, even though, I get along very, very well with my supervisors, and we have an excellent relationship. There's still, the ups and downs. Some days you feel like writing, some days you don't. Some days you feel the creative spirit, some days you don't. Some days you look at your dissertation and you say, it's a piece of crap. Other days you look at your dissertation and you say, oh my God, what a contribution I've made to the world. So I have 3 supervisors, and I listen to each and every one of them. Sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's hard, but boy, when they give me praise, whoa, does it ever feel good?
Because I started during lockdown, I think that's made it more difficult, because I think it's very difficult to sort of build relationships when you can't actually see someone in person. And then I think the first couple of times that I met with my supervisor, I was so surprised that I'd been given the chance to do the PhD in funding. this is supposed to be like a sort of supportive experience. So I'm like, all right, okay.
Seek other opportunities for my students. So it's not just about the research project that they're involved in, but it's about developing them as a whole person and preparing them for a life in academia if they choose to pursue that. So thinking about conferences. So I've organised symposia that have involved some of my students, for example, so that we all go as a team to present at a conference, and then they've got the support of myself as somebody more experienced, and they get the great opportunity of presenting their work to another audience.
Treat it like a working relationship. Some of them are more formal than others. That's just how they go. But once you've established how your relationship is, keep it consistent.
I think what was nice about that was that everyone was very honest with me about the possibility that it wouldn't go ahead unless everyone was confident that it would finish. Which I really respected and felt respected as well, because I thought, right, that's nice. It's not just about, particularly being self-funded, it's not just about, oh yeah, you pay the tuition and if it breaks, 6 months before the end, sorry. It's not like that. They really said, like, no, we've looked at this and we think it will work. So, but we need to find everybody who has the right skill set.
But I think also as well, it's important to recognise, both from a supervisor and a supervisee standpoint, that the nature of the PhD is a contribution to new knowledge. So you're doing something that people have not done before, and so there's a novelty, but there's also an uncertainty to doing the work as well. So nobody really knows how this is going to turn out, and there's a level of not chaos, but uncertainty around that work, and it's important just to get used to that and just to be comfortable with doing something that people haven't done before.